Steve, we've been talking about Service Desk a lot lately, especially how to think about the end customer, like really designing that Service Desk experience for them. We've also talked a lot about artificial intelligence and how it can now help guide users to the right workflows. But one of the things that we haven't really talked about is how do you actually graduate from a help desk, sort of that help desk, everything is a ticket experience, into a service desk, which involves a lot of more automated workflows, engaging a lot of other departments, and really being able to deliver on the promise of not everything being a ticket.
Yeah, I think we've all seen the basic functionality of a help desk. You have an issue with some piece of technology you're using, you go somewhere, you open a ticket in a portal or email, and then your IT team just magically makes it all better. But there's another way to organize how you manage services, just from basic ticketing to actually structured service.
So where do you start with that? I think we sort of all have great ideas for the way that we would automate or the way we would build richer workflows, and we either never have time or the tool's really complicated. How is working with a service desk different to make that a lot easier?
Yeah, I think the difference is working with a comprehensive solution for service that brings together break fix with structured workflow for more managed service delivery is really the place to start.
So with specific focus on all the fantastic things, why don't you show us what that looks like?
Great, thanks Patrick. So let's get started. So this is the service portal. It's pretty much a one-stop shop for where all of your employees can get all the help that they need for any sort of IT service and other services for your business. So one of the things that you really want to do in this kind of experience is the goal of this is really to avoid creating tickets. Like if you can help an employee solve their own problems, that makes them more efficient, that makes the service desk more efficient. So the place that I'll start is really for searching. So let's say that I've got some sort of issue with my laptop and I say just that my laptop is broken. What you'll see here first is a search-based way of presenting the employee with everything that they may need, whether it's a service request that could solve the problem, knowledge articles where they could self-help. But if all else fails, you can find it a couple of different ways.
And so the goal here again is to avoid that thing where you go to the help desk page and there's a long list of things with descriptions, and somehow the user who maybe never uses a particular workflow or rarely has to intuit which one. So this is native language searching on the sorts of things that they would actually need to create that flow.
Right, absolutely. And it's not an IT-centric tool. Any kind of employee, they're very familiar with the search experience and what that can do for them. So we try to bring that experience into the service portal. So the next place you can go is if you don't find what you're really looking for while searching, you can see the most commonly requested service request items that are used across an entire organization. If you can't find what you're looking for there, you can then go to the most useful articles that the rest of your team members find interesting. It could be anything for how to fix a laptop, how to start a WebEx session. These are the things that the employees are using the most, so it's very likely that you're actually going to see something that's going to solve one of your problems or give you the service that you need. But also you can see your outstanding requests here. These are my outstanding requests for the things that I've been submitting, whether it's I have issues with a broken laptop or I'm actually onboarding a new employee, which we'll step through a bit later. But this ultimate experience on this first page is really about helping the employee help themselves and make sure that they get everything that they need. But if that's not the case, what we can do then is we just start going through the application. So I'll take you through a walkthrough of everything that's available in the portal. I can actually have tasks and approvals assigned to me as an employee as part of structured service delivery, which we'll talk a bit more about later. I can see a detailed view of all of my requests. I can actually search the knowledge base. If I don't see what I need on the main page, I can go in and have a search experience that helps me look for what I can find. A service catalog, which is a catalog of all of the service requests that any part of the business can provide to me in terms of anything that I may need. And then if all else fails, I can go create a new ticket through a form, through an experience you would normally expect to see.
So again, search tends to tie all of these things together, but if you want to go browse them in a catalog form, that's what those links are make easy.
So last but not least, one of the things I do want to show is you can have different types of service experiences, whether it's in a web app like this or over email, but we've actually just recently added chat capability. And what you can see here is this is a common way that people now want to start interacting with their service desk more in real time. What you see here is a history of a chat that I created around an issue about getting into Office 365. So you can see the history of all that there. You can actually ask for different types of service or create a ticket in this format if you'd rather, versus going through the things in a portal or what you might more traditionally do in email.
Does the service team tend to actually like chat? Because, I mean, there's nothing wrong with sending emails, but being able to have something that's going to take a minute to solve, it makes it async, but not as disconnected as an email might be.
Absolutely. So the good news is an agent won't actually get inundated with chat requests. There's some capabilities to actually route the chat requests that come through. Okay. So they love that because that's the kind of experience, again, in a digital age like today, it's usually about indirect channels and it's always more about real time. And it makes everyone more efficient as long as it's managed and they're not given too many things to work on at one time. So let me now move into the requests that I have outstanding. So I've not been terribly active. That's a good thing. I'm not having lots of problems and I'm not asking a lot of my business. But what you can see here again is the state of everything that is in process for me, whether something that needs a real break fix situation or something that's around the structured business process like onboarding a new employee that I have starting very soon. This is the place where you can come and see all of the details of everything that you have outstanding, as well as if you want to go back in time, you can see what you've actually opened in the past. So if you have a recurring problem, you can go and see if you can actually solve it with the same way it was solved in previous instances.
But you said something really interesting there, and I think that's part of the difference between a help desk and a service desk, is that you said, I'm not doing too many things, I'm not being a problem. But if you're using automation, you want people to do a lot of things, because this isn't pejorative. It's not, hey, I'm creating a lot of tickets. It's, I'm consuming a lot of automation and making it easier for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. The more automation that we put in place in graduating your service desk, it's really going to help the efficiency of the entire company. The employees are going to be more productive in their job. The people who are providing service are going to be more productive in delivering service.
Steve, it seems though as important as building a service catalog is driving adoption, because if nobody uses it, you're not going to be able to take advantage of these catalogs.
Absolutely, Patrick. We've seen customers do all sorts of things to not actually use the portal, from submitting tickets over email and service requests to forming lines around IT workstations. Absolutely. But the trick is really just to get users started. So putting links to the portal in all of their communications, doing more mass communications about the benefits of the productivity of using a service portal instead of waiting around for email exchanges is really those things that can help drive adoption.
Just reinforce where to start.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there is one question though. Service Desk can help, especially with these multi-departmental self-serve tickets, but you are still going to end up with those individually submitted tickets that look like a regular help desk ticket. How can a service desk actually improve service delivery speed for traditional tickets?
Exactly. It's, in the end, it's all about automating everything, making sure you collect the data that you need to drive the automation to speed time to resolution, but that can also be applied to service requests as well.
Yeah, you had me at automation. I'm an enormous fan of automation.
Great. Well, how about I show you?
Yeah, let's see.
Great. So what I have here set up is what's called an automation rule. So when an incident is created, we collect a certain amount of information up front, like what's broken, certain elements around categorization, if it's about hardware, the type of hardware that it is. So in this rule, what I've done is I've set up a rule that says if someone enters a ticket around a laptop and it happens to be a MacBook Air, that's a specialized team in the IT organization who provides service for MacBooks. So this is how you set it up. What you see is when we actually open a ticket, we can see that a Mac is frozen. What has happened is we've collected information when the ticket is created, and we've made sure that we connect a lot of information. These are all custom fields. We've noticed that it's actually a MacBook Air. So that automation rule that I showed you the setup for automatically assigns it to the Mac support team versus an IT generalist queue, so it doesn't go into a black hole.
So here's a question. Every time a human touches an incident, it's going to slow down the flow of delivery of a resolution for that. So how can you measure the effectiveness of automation, whether or not it's actually really improving service delivery?
Right. One way to do it in the product is you can go into the reporting section and you can take a look at the size of your general queue to your specialist queues. If your generalist queue is too big or is growing at a much greater rate than your other queues, that's an indication that there's not enough automation in place.
Okay, so that's a great example of automation inside of an individual incident. But what does automation look like inside of maybe a more useful workflow that's a part of a service catalog item?
Sure, I'll give you an example of something that everybody can relate to, which is onboarding a new employee.
Okay, so this is going to be, again, automation in flight between different users, as opposed to another session where we actually kind of went into defining and how that actually looks in the editor.
That's right. So let's take a look. Okay, so what you see here is the new onboarding request for Joel Cox. This is the actual, as you mentioned, in-flight processing of the service request. A couple of things to point out here is you can actually make sure that you're keeping an eye on the time to delivery. So this actually looks at the milestones for very key elements inside of a process, like the first time you respond to the request or certain other milestones in the processing itself.
Is it helpful because then the team can kind of see what the next couple of steps are? So they're literally, for lack of a better expression, one step ahead of where that workflow is?
It's one step ahead, but it can also warn you when you're getting to be close to one step behind. And that's really important in timely service delivery. So the other parts of the service request here, all of this information is collected on a form. So as we talked about before, a key to automation is collecting the right data. So we've done that in terms of collecting things like when is the start date, what kind of equipment is needed. But the real key behind this is the process defined by a workflow. So what you see here is a multi-step process where you go through things like assigning tasks, approvals for equipment, and creating accounts. So what you see here highlighted in this first step is actually the approval for the new hire. So this can get sent out to multiple users inside of the system. And then what you can see is those tasks. So these first 3 tasks, this is the task level view across the entire system. These are actually the tasks that are in flight as part of executing that workflow.
Okay, and you have the option here of also doing parallel assignments so that you end up with a bottleneck.
Correct. You can actually do things in a serial fashion or what's called a concurrent step, where you can have actually multiple activities going on at the same time before you move on to the next step in a workflow. So if we switch back, what I'll do is I'll take you through what this really looks like in the activity. So once that approval is actually obtained, what you see here are the steps that are going to be assigned out to different parts of the organization. Ordering a laptop, making sure you get a security badge. It would be kind of nice to be able to get into work.
It's important.
Make sure that you have everything that you need for your desk, your ergonomic chair, all that kind of good stuff. And then getting access to all of your applications. So this is a very structured way of tying things like automation and workflow to making sure that you're going step by step in a repeatable process. It ensures consistent quality of delivery as well as timely delivery, because if everything's stuck in a ticket, somebody's off doing their own thing, and different people who are working that ticket may not do it consistently and not in a timely fashion.
So does it also let other departments build data that's necessary through that workflow? So for example, in this example, if I'm going to run a laptop up and drop it on a desk, I need to know what desk. So facilities would typically assign that, or maybe a manager might assign that. So you can actually route this out to other departments. They can actually then add additional data that then is going to feed into the next step.
That's correct. So you can actually assign tasks to anyone in the organization who is participating in service delivery. So like you said, with facilities, there can be a piece of data that's collected, which is the cube number or the office number. And that makes sure the laptop actually gets to the right place instead of somebody getting a Christmas present they didn't expect.
Yeah, you do all the time to set up and configure a Mac, and then it sits for 2 days because nobody knows where to put it. It's not helpful.
Exactly. And then one of the other beauties of this is it's a very simple workflow. This is a business process that anybody can model from a business analyst, and it doesn't actually take the brain of a developer to build these things, because sometimes these tools can get very complex, but we actually focus on making it very simple and usable.
And when we first started talking about this, I got really excited about this because I think I do a lot of automation, a lot of development, and so I kind of went at this from the programmer perspective of I can do a million things, but that's not helpful here because you want business analysts to be able to create this so that it's closer to the end users, closer, especially if it's another department who maybe isn't part of IT and certainly isn't a developer. You're more likely to capture those business processes that you already have in the form of a workflow.
Absolutely. Powerful and flexible, but also extensible. So if you need to integrate with other third-party applications, you can actually do that from a step inside of the process.
All right, let's talk about a completely different topic for a second, and that is infrastructure awareness or asset awareness inside of a service desk. Because I think with a help desk, a lot of times, we kind of swivel chair integrate from multiple systems because they aren't really designed to manage assets. How do service desks give you a little bit more information about what's going on in the environment and then incorporate that with workflows?
Yeah. Actually, what you need to do is make sure that you have the most up-to-date information on all of your technology assets and the relationships inside of your service desk to help it run at peak efficiency. It's exactly why we recently introduced SolarWinds Discovery, which collects data a number of different ways.
Right, so that'll be things like there's a discovery agent, right? So that's going to collect information from computers. You can do IP sweeps. And then there's integrations also for SCCM, Chrome OS for Chromebooks, and then VMware vCenter, and then a couple of other ones.
That's right. So the idea is to collect everything and update it in your CMDB, which maps all of the relationships between your technology assets to help you drive your service management processes, whether it's incident for break fix, problem management for root cause diagnostics and resolution, change management and release management to make sure that you're releasing services as quickly and efficiently with quality as possible.
So how does that show up in the dashboard?
Sure. Let's take a look. So first what we're showing here is inside of the inventory, we actually break it up into multiple categories depending on what you want to accomplish. This view is a list of all of the end user devices inside of your organization. That's things like your desktops and your laptops. The other thing that we can do is we can take a look at the software view. So one of the great things about being able to collect software data is you can understand both from a troubleshooting perspective, what software is installed on one of your employees' laptops, as well as taking a look at things like license compliance. So for this view, this can actually show you how many licenses of a particular software title that you have installed, and it will actually generate a risk alert if you're actually out of compliance because nobody wants to get hit with a true-up bill.
Right.
And then from there, you can actually get into all sorts of other parts of the technology and organization. This is actually the mobile device view. And then as we discussed, we actually...
Whoa. Mobile devices?
Yeah, mobile devices too. And then what we most recently added was being able to discover all of your devices that are attached to your network, whether it's switches, routers, storage arrays, all that kind of good stuff, because you need that complete view of all of your technology assets in your organization.
I think I love talking about infrastructure and technology assets. But maybe the last question is, as a part of graduating from help desk to service desk, is it also about including assets maybe that aren't technology related at all?
Absolutely. It can be things like tables, chairs, projectors. And I would actually summarize it this way. If you can move past break fix tickets, blend in some of that asset data to drive your service management processes, drive more efficiency through workflow and automation, and provide a great portal experience, you're well on your way.
Right. So the more of those experiences you can concentrate in the service portal, the more likely they are to use it.
That's right.
Well, that's fantastic. For people who maybe want to check this out, there's a service offering, right? This isn't something you install, it's available online.
That's correct. You can sign up for a trial on your own, or you can request a demo.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being a part of this session.
Happy to be here. Thank you.